James Snow, retired sergeant, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, woodworker, and now author.
Yep.
I'm super grateful to have this chance to talk with you and pick your brain about the things that you've learned post-retirement and a very long and successful career in law enforcement. So let's get into it.
All right.
All right. I want to talk about really your book, and the concepts that are in it. It's called A Pivot, A Guide to Moving Forward When the Mission Changes. And I think a lot of us, this resonates with a lot of us, whether we're retired or we've changed careers or we're looking at it. There's a lot of good things you talk about in here, but tell me, what is the pivot?
The concept of it kind of came when I was talking to my daughter. She went to school to be a musical theater. She was a musical theater major and went to school to do Broadway, and she moved to New York for a year. And,
wow.
You know, having to work 3 jobs just to pay for an apartment, never left her time to go audition for anything. And then she went to work as a teacher and was doing that, but because of politics at a school that's not like, it was like a charter school. You know,
okay.
They ended up not renewing her contract for the next year. So she was kind of like at that, what am I going to do? So she was starting to do some woodworking with me, and we were starting to talk about stuff. And we were just kind of talking one day about like shifting directions. And I said, you know, kind of like in basketball, when you pivot, you know, you get the ball and you can stand in one place, but you can pivot different directions to kind of figure out where you want to go. And that kind of stuck in my head and kind of resonated. And then she and I flew back to Atlanta to go to a woodworking conference, and just on the plane while I was sitting there with my laptop, I just started typing out some ideas for the book. I'd kind of been wanting to write a book for a while. Kind of the impetus to writing the book was one of my best friends, John Emmons, when he took his life. John and I were super close. And when he took his life, and knowing all of the stuff that was going on in his life and everything else, and the fact that he just couldn't let go of those things and pivot away to, you know, something different, that kind of started the idea of writing a book rolling. And then talking to my daughter and her trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
She went to AMDA, which is the Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts in Hollywood. But at the time, they weren't in a fully accredited college.
Okay.
So she came back and wanted to go teach at a regular school, and they said, yeah, your degree is not accredited. So she had a $160,000 degree that wasn't accredited.
Yeah.
So now she just finished a second bachelor's, and she may go back to teaching, but you know, she had this degree that was basically useless. So it's like, okay, what am I going to do? So she was starting to do some woodworking and stuff, and now she works for the county. She was like, okay, that wasn't for me, and she got a job working for the county. So now she's working for the county. So and she likes that. But so it was just that kind of tying it into the same thing. Like, I've kind of made my pivot, and it was basically based on things that I already knew early in my career when I started woodworking, because it was always that I need something in my life to be able to redirect all of the crap that we see on a daily basis.
All this energy,
and all of this, you know, people don't call us because they're having the best day of their lives and they want to invite us to a birthday party. They call us because it's the worst day of their life. And, you know, and when you're going from call to call to call like that, at the end of the day, when you go home, it's like, how do you decompress from that? You know, some people turn to alcohol, some turn to drugs, some turn to gambling, you know, some buy boats and jet skis, and then the overtime dries up and they got to sell it all. So it was just, you know, for me, that was woodworking and music as well. I've played in band with Jamie Marshall and some of the other guys from the department. So that's always kind of been another outlet, but having those various outlets so that your whole identity isn't wrapped up in the job.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the purpose of writing the book, is seeing a lot of people that I know retire that go double dip at another department, or they go work security somewhere. And it's like they've become so tied up in their identity of being in law enforcement that they don't know what to do afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, now I'm sitting at home watching TV. Well, I don't want to die in 5 years, so what am I going to do? But it's, what else have you prepared yourself to do earlier in your career so that when you retire, you have another outlet and you don't have to stay in law enforcement or a law enforcement related field the rest of your life?
Yeah. There's a lot of things you said there. There's two that I definitely want to come back to. One, I do want to talk about John, because you mentioned that in the foreword of your book is, you know, he was the inspiration to all of this. So I don't want to like gloss over that right now. Two is the identity portion of it. Because as much as we all know that you shouldn't and you couldn't, it's kind of hard not to. I shouldn't say not to, but it's a big, this job is just different than any other job. No other
Correct.
job asks you, I shouldn't say no other job. Very few other jobs ask you to put your life in jeopardy for strangers or other people. So there is this like weight to this job that does make sense that some identity issues would arise from it.
Right. 100%.
But I want to just ask you point blank, and I'm going to channel my very best Jason Hendricks in this, who you also mention in the book. Because, and I'm going to say this, and you know me well enough to know I'm not trying to be an asshole here.
I know.
But I didn't know you like this book. I just knew you as a lighthearted, gregarious, like funny, shit-talking guy, right? So I'm just going to ask, like I said, I'm going to ask it in my best Jason, like, why should we listen to you?
Because I've lived it. I've lived every bit of it, 28 and a half years of, and I've worked just about every assignment you can work. Patrol, narcotics, SWAT, traffic. I was a mate supervisor. I've seen thousands and thousands of dead people, children. I've worked pretty much Sandcat. I worked auto theft. So, I've worked just about every, and I worked 3 different agencies. I worked Orange County Sheriff's Department when I started. I did 10 years at Rialto PD, and then I came to the Sheriff's Department. I try and be very brutally honest. And having read the book, I think you probably can get from being the gregarious, shit talker that I can be to, some of the stuff I open up and talk about in there.
Yeah.
There's I wanted to be very I tried to make the book very conversational, like we're sitting and talking and like, we're just talking to each other, and it's not you should do this, you should do this.
Right.
I didn't want to write like a self-help book where it's like, I just wanted to be like kind of a conversational thing where like, here's someone that's been through what I've been through, understands what I'm going through, and has been able to come out the other side in a more positive manner. Yeah. And maybe there's some things that he did that will help me in my journey.
And you don't just talk about you. You talk to other people. You talk to Jason, you talk to Chris, you talk to a lot of other people, and you relate it across different careers as well.
Yeah.
But I know like the biggest thing is like you talk about service-oriented careers, paramilitary careers, and careers that see a lot of trauma, that blue collar kind of white knuckling it.
But I think it can cross all genres. I was an electrician for 10 years before I was a cop, and I know guys that have been electricians their whole life, and they're going to die one because, they don't have a retirement, or, they're self-employed, they have their own business and really haven't saved. So they're going to be doing that their whole lives. And they can be in these same, caught up in, this is what I do, this is who I am, and I don't see a way out. Yeah. So it's kind of geared towards, that's my experience, and most of the people I know come from those fields. But it's really, I tried to make it broad enough that it would apply to everyone, because I think anyone can get their identity wrapped up in what they are, and they can make what they do who they are. And I think that's where we need to remember is like, what you do is a job. It's not who you are. Yeah. Being a cop wasn't who I was. There were probably some points in my career, especially when I was younger, that, the badge was heavy, and, we're raising our granddaughter now, and our kids will say, man, if we did what she did, you would have lost your crap. And you're like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Because at 24 years old, my badge was this big and my ego was bigger than that. And as a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, you weren't going to tell me that, and that was just, and at 57 years old, it's like, okay, she spilled her milk.
Plus, that's your granddaughter. Like, that's not
right. Well,
no, but absolutely.
But yeah, but we've had her full time since she is 6 months. So it's like, so it's that, I hate to say the older and wiser, but it's like with experiences, if you listen to those experiences and learn from them, you're a much different person in your 40s and 50s than you were in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah, my oldest son will come home. He's 26 now, and I have the teenagers at home. And of course, he always says, like, if I ever did that same thing, right? And 1, maybe I'm older and wiser. 2, I'm definitely more tired. And 3, I'm just a different person, just because of everything, right? Yeah. And
you learn what's important and what's not.
Yeah.
That's really, I think that's what it comes down to. It's like, in the grand scheme of life and all the things that we've dealt with and seen, is that really a big deal? No.
the identity. In your book, you talk about over-identification. And you say that there's some red flags that you can see. And you really relate it to burnout, like over-identifying and burnout. And that kind of hit. Like when I read that, I, made note of it and thought, let me pick James's brain on this part, because sometimes we attribute like being good at something, right? And we pour ourselves into it. But then how does that lead to possibly the red flags you're talking about, right? And where's that line that we need to be careful of? Can you talk a little bit about that?
The job is such a, and especially the places we've worked, is such a go, 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 go. I mean, like I worked with Rialto, and then when I left the jail and went to patrol, I went to Victorville, which is, the Rialto of the high desert.
Yes.
So it's like, and you're, 300 calls for service pending, and you're just going call to call to call. So you're just, that full run, then you get off work and it's like, okay, hey, let's go have choir practice. Let's go have some drinks. And de-stress that way. And I think you get in this cycle where you don't ever really wind down to back where your baseline is.
Yeah.
You're just running at this level forever. And then on top of that, with all the trauma we see, you're shoving that 30 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag, and you just keep shoving and shoving and shoving and shoving. People think that it's never going to come out.
Yeah.
And it's that you get to that point, and that's where those red flags start to come out. It's like, and I just did a talk at the Cato conference a few weeks ago. And this is one of the things I was talking to guys about, is like, we always want to say like leadership needs to look out for their guys. And, and I have some of the best leaders I worked for at the sheriff's department, some of the worst leaders I worked for at the sheriff's department. You get it across the board. But I think one of the things I think we really need to start doing is looking at ourselves as leaders.
Yeah.
And being, and I hate, it's kind of a trite term, but our brother's keeper. And it's like, when you're at the hospital on a call and you see your partner that you know's married, and you've been to his house and had dinner with his family, and you see him hitting on a nurse, to pick up a nurse, to be able to say, hey, dude, come on. What are you doing? What's going on? And when you start to see those things, the gambling, the money spending, the alcohol, abuse that, we know goes on widespread.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you don't say anything. To me, it's always kind of been that at the end of the night, I have to look myself in the mirror and go to bed with a clear conscience, knowing that I spoke up when I should have.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, there's been plenty of times I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something at the end of the day you got to live with and know, but those red flags that come up are because, I think a lot of times, because we're not being our brother's keepers. It's like, oh, that's his issues, that's his problems to deal with. And it's like, I've got my own problems I'm going through. And it's like, okay, well, if we're not going to look out for each other, who's going to look out for us?
Yeah.
Because that, like I said, that the whole like, oh, leadership, it should be watching their guys. And yeah, leaders run around and we're a family comes first. And it's like, I can honestly say it's been a handful of times that's true. John may have been the first leader that ever said family comes first and actually meant it. When I went to work for him as my traffic sergeant, he was like, hey, family comes first. I don't care if it's a day at Disneyland with your kids. If you need a day off for something with your family, you let me know and we'll make it work.
Wow.
And we were in Vegas a couple years later. My wife had what they thought was a stroke. And he was like on the phone trying to get 40 King to come to Vegas to pick us up, to get us back to Loma Linda and get us to a hospital here. And I mean, it was like, wow, someone actually means what they said.
Yeah.
And, and some of the other guys in my career, like Donnie Mahoney, was like that.
Yeah.
Donnie's one of my best friends now. And, but he was always like that. And so when you get those people that actually like mean it when they say it,
yeah,
it means something.
Yeah.
But all too often we hear that and then we don't see it exhibited in any manner whatsoever. And it's like, so basically I'm a position number, because as soon as I'm gone, you're going to backfill me. And so it's like, how do if we're not, as peers, if we're not looking out for each other, who's going to look out for us? As
you're talking about that, man, I'm thinking also of great leaders that I've had, but then there's that trust. Like, that you can ask them to follow through on what they said, because it's like you said, you've seen it, or there's been an experience. I think there's a tough time for the troops right now, because there's a lot of talk about be open, communicate, wellness matters and all this stuff. But I think there's a serious lack of trust. And I'm not saying it's merited per se at all. I'm just saying
a lot of that
it's
all
hard.
comes back to what is perception. Perception's reality.
Yeah.
If my experiences have led me to believe that there's not trust there and that trust isn't a two-way street, am I going to open up and be communicative? Am I going to allow that accountability if I don't feel that I can trust my leadership?
Yeah.
And like you said, it may be misplaced, misjudged.
Right.
An experience happened and I took it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And thought it was a personal thing when it was just, it was what it was. But your perception's your reality.
Yeah.
So it's there does need to be a certain amount of openness and communication there. But where do we get that trust to be able to have that baseline to open that dialogue?
And I think I'm thinking back at what you said about, I like what you're saying about that personal accountability versus putting everything on leadership. And look, as leaders of organizations, those are the things you want to do, right? But how realistic is it to think that you're going to get to the core base of your line troops or people that you're just organizationally removed from?
Right.
Through no fault of anybody's, there's no bad intentions. You're just, leadership is removed from the troop, the front lines.
Right.
Just sheerly by organizational charts.
Right. Well, and as a sergeant, like I ran the traffic division at Rancho, and, through working with my team, we were able to change the culture, and we had a phenomenal team. And I tried to be that John Emmons to my guys, that hey, family comes first. And I think all my people believe that because I tried to live that. I tried to live that example that I was taught. But you also have a responsibility to the organization. Mm-hmm. So it's that towing that line of, okay, I'm going to be there for my people and have their backs. But at the same time, I have a responsibility to the organization that, I have to make sure that things run the way the organization policies and procedures, deem that they need to be run. So it's kind of walking that tightrope. I've
noticed, I think, especially because of like my age or had I not left the department, the 20-year mark, right? So my peers that I went to the academy with, they're all in really pivotal middle management positions, which I think is the backbone.
Right.
The absolute backbone of the organization. And, I watch a lot of people that I know well and some people I don't know well make really great decisions and have forward-thinking ideas. And I also see sometimes like the burden where they feel this, like they want to do what's best for their troops, but they don't want to push upwards too hard for fear of future, right? And career development and career advancement. And that's where I agree with you, where everybody kind of needs to take personal accountability. And I think people will always look in the mirror and say, I'm going to do what I think is right, and weighing all these different factors out. But how do the leaders at the top, because I truly believe that they want their middle management to be comfortable making those decisions. How does that, and I know I'm getting a little off of the book,
but that's fine.
this is where this conversation went right now.
Yeah. Take it where it leads.
From your perspective, in hindsight, how do you talked about changing culture, as a leader, make it a place where people feel free to be their own best leader?
It's a loaded question, but it's ego. It's getting people to let go of their ego. And we're back to identity.
Yeah.
Everyone says when I promote, I'm not going to change. And you and I have both seen people the day after they promoted completely change.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're the company man or whatever you want to call it. But it's no longer do they have any grace for their coworkers or their subordinates.
Yeah.
That last week you were doing the same thing I was doing, and now you're going to hold me accountable and drop the hammer on something. It's like, you don't build trust and accountability and culture that way. It's a horrible way. So it's most of the studies you look at, people don't leave their jobs because of pay.
Yeah.
It's culture, it's trust, it's the way they're treated.
Support.
It's, it's, and again, it may be a trite saying, but it's people aren't going to remember what you said to them, but they're going to remember the way they felt, how you treated them.
Yeah.
If someone treated me like crap and I felt like a piece of crap, I'm going to remember that. The words they said may not matter. I'm probably not going to remember the words unless it was something really egregious. But for the most part, people don't remember the things that are said. They remember the way they felt and the way they were treated. So, I think that's where we need to, and with leadership and it's, and I don't know exactly how you do it, but it's convincing those people that get promoted as they go up to listen to the ideas of their subordinates and their speak last.
Yeah.
You know, when I first went to ASU as a sergeant, I implemented a Tuesday staff meeting, and I always tried to speak last.
Yeah.
Whatever the issue was, I wanted to hear everyone else's idea before I spoke, because I didn't want to influence their ideas, and I didn't want them to feel like, well, he's going to do what he wants to do anyway, so why should I even speak up? You know, you got to listen to your people.
Yeah.
And really, you know, my follow-up leadership book really could just be treat your people well. Take care of your people. That's your job as a leader.
Yeah.
Take care of your people. If you could really like make it succinct, if you take care of your people, they're going to take care of you. Yeah. Are there going to be outliers? Yeah, there's always outliers because we're human again. But for the most part, if you take care of your people, they're going to want to take care of you.
You're right. It is that simple.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's a simple concept.
The concept is simple. The application, all that stuff is very,
There's
nuanced and, jinx. I want to talk about culture again in terms of excellence, right? Because excellence that's the gold standard. You want to be excellent. But you talk about in your book excellence at the to the point maybe of burnout, and it's another culture issue. And look, culture is a very difficult thing to attack or dismantle, especially when part of the culture is, or a lot of the culture is based on really good traditions, right? And so how do you pull apart the things that are maybe no longer helping the profession and insert new thought process while still keeping the foundation of this hardworking excellence theme?
Right.
But you talk about in the book, like being the first one in and the last one to leave, which is good on its face, right? But then you talk about that also being a red flag for like burnout. And
right.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think especially for people who are newer in their career, or even mid-career, whatever, from your perspective, maybe hearing it from there, like.
I don't think there's anything on its face wrong with being the first one in, the last one to leave. Again, when I started at Rialto, I was out of the locker room before any of the senior guys were in, sitting in the briefing room, front row, the very first seat, the boot in the front row. And, I'd be the last one there doing paper and whatever. But just like anything, you can take that too far.
Yeah.
It's like you can have such a drive to want to excel that the other important things are falling by the wayside. And when you talk about excellence, it's like we all know people that are excellent at their job, but their family lives are an absolute train wreck. Or their interpersonal relationship, or their health. They're a great deputy. They can solve any crime, but they weigh 350 pounds.
Or they can't sleep through the night because of the constant.
But man, if you talk about their work ethic, they have phenomenal work ethic.
Yeah.
But excellence doesn't just pertain to one thing. When I talk about excellence, it's you need to try and balance that out across your entire life, across all of the things you're doing, not just I'm going to be the best SWAT deputy that ever was, and SEAL Team 6 is going to call me because they saw me in a SWAT video, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're great at that, but tell me about the rest of your life.
There was a line, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it. You say, true excellence requires rest, boundaries, and saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I obviously don't disagree with you. I agree with you. I think back though, like how do you do that as a deputy, right? How do you say no?
Again, it's being your brother's keeper, accountability. When you see a buddy that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour to, do this one thing, being able to say, hey, you're doing great, but what else is going on?
Yeah.
Why are you? Because a lot of times I think when people fixate on one thing and they're just focused on that, it's because they're trying to ignore something else that's going on. And I've done it. And it really does come down to, setting boundaries, being able to say no.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can you come in and work another overtime shift of DUI saturation? You know what? No, I can't tonight. I've worked 90 hours this pay period. my family wants to go out to dinner, and I'm not going to tell them no again. I need to go do this.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, most people may not look at that as excellence, but that's a form of excellence.
I agree.
And it's saying, you know, I realize that I can only do so much and be so much. You can only spread yourself so thin before, you know, the paper tears.
Right.
So it's like, where are you going to invest that time and energy? And if you're only investing it to be the best deputy you can be, trust me, the other shoe's going to fall at some point.
Yeah.
Because you're ignoring a whole other more important part of your life. At the end of the day, it's a job. I mean, I hate to put it that way. I loved my career. I loved helping people. I don't regret for 1 minute any of my career, but I can sit here and honestly tell you I don't miss it at all. I miss some of the camaraderie.
Yeah.
I miss morning coffees with my traffic team.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to talk and, you know, brief at a coffee shop and be able to, you know, let our hair down and kind of BS a little bit and just that camaraderie. But the job itself, I don't miss any of it. I loved it while I was doing it.
Yeah.
But it was a job. It was a calling. You know, from the time I was a little boy, I wanted to be a cop. And I got to live out my dream.
Yeah.
And when it was time to be done, it was time to be done. And there's like really nothing that calls me back to like, oh, you know what? I want to go be a chief of police somewhere. No desire. I loved what I did, but it was what I did. It wasn't who I am.
Yeah. Well, because now you have other things that you love to do.
Right.
And that new purpose that you also talk about in the book.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's one of the things, you know, when for over a decade, I ran the academy at Victor Valley College. I was the post coordinator at the academy there. And, you know, that's one of the things I told all of my students, like, you need to have hobbies.
Yeah.
Learn how to play guitar, take up woodworking, become a chess champion. I don't care what it is. You have to have interest outside of the job.
Yeah.
Your friends that you have now, before you become a cop, keep those friends. Like my best friend is my best friend from 5th grade. Yeah. I thanked him in the book. We've been friends, you know, 52 years, you know, since we were 10 years old and played baseball together. And I can call him up anytime and know that he's going to pick up the phone and he's there. Those people will keep you grounded. Yeah. I think a lot of times you get into that group of peers that can be not always so healthy. It's like, yeah, you're right. You got fucked over for that promotion. They screwed you. And it's that circle of negativity that's just like, and it's like some of those old friends, if you keep the right old friends, they're going to put you in check and be like, the fuck are you talking about? You didn't get screwed. Yeah. You didn't deserve that promotion, or, you know, and you can have those peers too. It's having that group of friends and circle of peers that you know is going to be honest with you. Yeah. That's going to say, and it goes back to the accountability thing I was talking about, and you're being your brother's keeper. It's like when you start saying, man, I should have got promoted. I did this, and that. And it's like having a friend that was like, dude, you like gaffed off a bunch of calls for service. You did this, you don't deserve to get promoted. And yeah, that may cause a little, but if we don't have that, I mean, they talk about that in SLI and they talk about it at the post supervisory course. It's like the critical conversations. And yeah. It's like, that doesn't just go leader to subordinate. We need to be able to have
peer to peer.
Yes. We need to be able to have those conversations and accountability peer to peer that, hey, you're fucking up. Yeah. You know, and if it has to be that blunt, it has to be that blunt. But hey, we're friends and I love you and I don't want to see you go down this road. What's going on?
Yeah. I even think, like, because, you know, I didn't work every position. I have clearly not done as much as you. I was only on the department for 10 years. So I worked patrol. I worked public affairs, which is one of my strong suits. Right. And then I was a detective, right?
Could you imagine that? A person who was a reporter working public affairs.
I know, it's weird. It's weird. But I listened to, and in my role here, and I've just heard other people, and on face value, I'm like, yes, this is extremely important. The team building and teams that are in high risk situations, like an SED or another, like a gang or narcotics team. I see them being very close knit and with all good intentions, right? Like, we want to make sure that, you know, our wives know each other and we're here for each other and all that stuff, which is good. And there's no judgment or anything. But then I think just in the back of my mind, like, okay, but what else outside of this, right? Because this is all still tied to the job, which is good. There's my my best friend is law enforcement, right? Like we met in the academy. She's always going to be she's like a sister to me. So I'm not saying that you're not going to find those tried and true relationships, friends, camaraderie in the profession. You're going to.
Right.
There's just the place where I guess the balance comes in.
Right. I've seen this throughout my career hanging out with, when I was at Rialto, other than like my best friend I grew up with, the only people I hang out with were other cops. And that, that changed as I got older. But, throughout that period of that 10-year period of my career, it's like, that's all I hung out with was other cops. And it was like, and inevitably you start talking shit and you start talking down on the department and how fucked up the job is. And, and it's like, that's why I think it's really important that you have that circle of friends that isn't in the field.
Yeah.
That, hey, let's go play golf. Let's go do this. Because even this, like the SEBA golf tournament I've been at, everyone's talking about work. Yeah. It's like people aren't talking about, hey, what are your kids doing? What are you doing for vacation? It's this, the politics here, the promotions here, the politics. It's like, it's like, okay, we're supposed to be out playing golf, having a good time.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's talk about family or vacation or something. But it's like, I think when you just surround yourself with that group, it's just naturally going to revolve around that, unless you're very particular about saying, hey, we're not talking about work today.
Yeah.
And that, again, that takes someone with the accountability and the looking out for their brothers to say, look, I don't want to hear anything about work today.
Yeah. Like we're friends, maybe off from the job, but we're off. Like,
yes,
let's just be,
let's talk about our golf game or our families or vacation or something else, but we're not talking about the job today, because I think inevitably that's everyone's shared common experience. So that's what, when you forget what you're going to say or you don't know what to say, well, we'll just fall back to the familiar. So it's surrounding yourself with other people and not always being I've got to be in this little clique of guys or gals.
Yeah.
That's the case maybe.
Your book talks about finding your new purpose, but you also talked about having, at the beginning, you said, I've got this place where I can put these energies and all of this, I don't want to just say it's bad, right? But like trauma, stress, for you, it was creative, music and woodworking.
Right.
And I know that you talk a lot about why that's so important. And you just said it again. Because I want to keep this relevant to the people who are doing the job as well. When there's mandated overtime and, it's hard to get a day off. And I will say the department's done a good job to make sure that people still get their days off. And they've done a lot with scheduling to make sure that the mandated overtime is as manageable as possible. But when we're understaffed and there's more to respond to, it feels like, yeah, there's only so many people. How in hindsight, from your perspective, would you reasonably expect a younger deputy to be able to pick up a hobby while still being under so much stress and pressure to work?
I think everyone, even before they come into the job, has hobbies and things that interest them. So it's just making sure that you continue doing those things. Like there's guys that bike ride, that do like bicycle touring, go to the beach and surf. So most people have some sort of hobby that they've grown up with. It's not that you have to pick up a new, new skill or trade or hobby just because, okay, well, I need to deal with the stress of the job, so I need to learn something new. That's all fine and good. I mean, one of the things I tell everyone is read voraciously. I still read about 3 books a month. I've always loved reading. Read a book. I don't care what it is, but almost everyone has hobbies that they've been doing their entire lives. Yeah. So, like I said, be it riding a bike, be it surfing, be it, skateboarding.
Yeah. Sports, martial arts.
Everyone's a jiu-jitsu practitioner now. It's like, so do those things. You're still going to get days off. So on your days off, you do those things. If you're working a 4-10 shift, you have time before and after work to do things to wind down. You don't have to leave work and go to the bar with your buddies. Hey, I'm going to go to the gym. Even that, to get that, the dopamine hit from working out and and having that, okay, I had a stressful day. I experienced some traumatic events. I go to the gym and I work out for an hour and a half, get that adrenaline out and go home and, be that more calm guy that's not coming home with all of that trauma just sitting there. So it's, I think all too often, and I've done it too, we make these excuses of, I don't have time. I don't have time. And it's like, but then you go back and you pull out your phone and you look at like screen time.
Yeah.
Gee, I was on my phone 5 hours a day.
I don't look
this past week. So it's like, it's like, okay, well, I mean, you do social media
I'm kidding.
stuff,
No,
right?
I'm kidding.
So,
no, it's bad.
But I mean,
Ask my kids.
I think we get all these people that say, and I'm horrible at it, like I'll come out of the room and sit down and plop down in the leather chair in the kitchen. It's like all of a sudden it's 45 minutes later and what do I have to show for, that last 45 minutes?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's a little intellectually dishonest to tell ourselves we don't have time to do things.
Yeah. We're not making the time.
The time's there. How are you prioritizing your time?
Yeah.
So it comes down to, and again, being a young deputy, you're young. You don't have a lot of times the life experience to say, you know what, I need to be more focused with my time. But again, that comes back to your peers, more senior deputies saying, hey, like, I see you like always on your phone every time you're like in between calls or whatever the case may be. Like, hey, or just, in conversation before briefing when you're sitting around bullshitting and, hey, what did you do? Nothing. I don't have time to do anything. Okay, well, tell me what you do during the day. What's your schedule look like? From the time you get up, what do you do? Because I think I had a lot of really good mentors in my career, older officers at Rialto and older deputies that were very much those guys that weren't afraid to, like, most of them could be intimidating. And you're like, shit, he's talking to me. I don't know. But it's like those guys like helped shape my career and who I was as a man.
Yeah.
By not being afraid to say things like, hey, that's fucked up. What are you doing that for? Or hey, tell me about your schedule. What do you do during the day?
Yeah. Don't
give me this bullshit. You don't have time. Everyone has time. So it's that I hate to use the word again, but it's accountability.
Yeah.
And if you can find that mentor that you feel accountable to, like, man, I better get off my shit because when I go into work tomorrow night, Joe's going to say, hey, what'd you do today? Did you get to the gym? So it's like, almost that having that relationship where you feel a responsibility to, and if that's what you need, some people don't need that. Some people, can go to the gym and go to jiu-jitsu and do all the things they need to do, and they don't have to make a list, and they don't have to.
They're self-motivated. It's just part of what they do.
It's part of what they do and who they are, and they have that discipline. And, there's others like, I'm like, okay, what jobs do I have this week that I've got to get done and out? And then it's like, and then my wife's like, you said you were going to take the weekend off. Why are you? Well, because I got to get this job done because I got to get it out. And because earlier in the week I mismanaged my time. So, it doesn't go away just because you retire.
I hear you talking about, like, I know we keep going back to accountability, which is the crux of probably the personality type. I mean, it's the crux of the profession, right? It's holding people accountable for their actions. That's kind of the basis of what law enforcement is, or should be. But I want to say, like, the accountability and then the communication and the trust of the people, your circle, your support circle.
Well, and accountability is nothing without trust.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have that basis of trust or accountability doesn't work.
Yeah. And then I'm even hearing, and maybe obviously everybody hears things through their own lenses and all that stuff. So I hear a lot of time because I make the same excuses, which it's just not true. I do have the time. I'm either not prioritizing my time or I'm overwhelmed with all the things I have to do, which puts me into like just a frozen state.
Right, it's the fight or flight or freeze.
Yeah. And then going back to another, a harder topic that you talked about in the book is being able to discuss when things get heavy and being able to have those people that you can talk to, where the most tragic thing is feeling like you have no other option, And so sometimes I think it's like we all feel like, okay, I mean, there's memes, speaking of social media, there's memes about it, right? Like, as a woman, like, oh, I'm just trying to, go to the gym, stay hydrated, do my facial care, get 8 hours of sleep, get my kids to school on time, make sure that they graduate, nobody goes to prison, right? And there's like, you just feel like the weight of the world. Add in a very demanding job that has a lot of like heavy consequences, not just for yourself, your personal being, your partners, your community. How do you make sure that you have a support system where when things get really heavy that you can talk to somebody?
It goes back to fostering those relationships and building those relationships with those people that you can build that trust with. For me, you know, it was John, it was Donnie. My wife was a dispatcher for us for 12 years, so she understood the job.
Yeah.
And one of the, you know, things I talk about in the book is, you know, when I was on patrol right after I went to patrol in Victorville, there was a baby not breathing call that ended up being a homicide, where the baby's mom's boyfriend had stuffed her under a couch cushion and slept on top of her and killed her. And that call, like, it was, that night I went home and I probably finished a bottle of not Jack Daniels, because that's gasoline, Jameson. And, you know, and dealing with it all the ways that are unhealthy to deal with it. And, you know, talking through with my wife and all of that. But that call stuck with me, because for the first time, and I mean, I don't know why it's that call, because I had done 10 years at Rialto and seen a lot of bad shit.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, that call, like, fucked me up. It was like, that was the call that resonated, that, like, I can still see that baby when I close my eyes. And that was one of the ones that just, I think that's when I finally maybe realized the depravity of man, that we are an evil, left to our own resources, we can be an evil thing. Species.
Yeah.
And about that time, I just stopped caring. And for a long time, I didn't care about anything. I was absent from my family. You know, I was wrapped up in what I was doing, being excellent at work, but family suffered, relationship with the wife suffered, you know, and I just didn't care, because what's the point? I mean, look at what these people are doing to each other. Why care?
Yeah.
And, you know, it took therapy, you know, and finally, I think coming to a point, you know, where you got to do something about this, you know. And I talk in the book, you know, I sat in my closet with a gun in my hand.
Yeah. I read that
and it was like, you know, would my family be better off without me? No. I mean, I didn't have the gun in my mouth cocked or anything, but it was in my hand, in my lap, and, like, you know, would they be better off without me? And then it's, well, first of all, I don't want my granddaughter, my wife, having to walk into the closet and with my brains all over because I've been to plenty of those calls.
I know. I'm getting chills thinking about it.
It's that, and it's like, well, no, they wouldn't be better off without me, but I better do something about this.
Yeah.
Because I'm at the end of my rope.
Yeah, because the person that can sit in the closet with a gun in their hand and think these thoughts has to do something better, right?
Yeah.
To show up better.
Yeah. So, and then in the book, you know, I apologized to my kids for being absent and for not being there. You know, it's one of those things that my family paid a cost for my career, you know, and not just that type of stuff, but for all the nights I was gone, for all the birthdays I missed, for all the holidays I missed, you know, the family pays a toll for what we do. And that goes back to one of those things where, you know, you talk about balance and excellence. And it's like, you know, your family is paying a price for you doing the career that you're passionate about and that you feel called to do. And if you don't include them in that, you know, you wonder why we have a divorce rate that's, you know, probably 60, 75%. You know, I have an ex-wife, you know, I don't know many cops that don't have, you know, that went through one marriage. You know, most of them have two or three. Yeah. You know, luckily I married someone that understood the profession and the career and, you know, and was willing to put up with my shit and call me on it. And, you know, but it's that being able to be open and realize that, you know, and we're not always good at that as cops, because that type A personality that's driven to be the best. And it's like the self-reflection thing isn't a natural thing for cops to do. Well, we don't naturally sit down and say, okay, let me reflect on what's going on in my head. And because and I think we're getting better, but for so many years we were taught, you don't talk.
Well, men especially. Men especially.
Up, right.
Not to play the gender thing,
and
but
not even as a cop. Just as a man in general.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't complain. You suck it up. You know, you don't talk. And it's like, and it's, you know, it goes back to the whole thing of the thin blue line and the blue wall and the, you know, code of silence and all of this bullshit. And it's like, you know, and how many people have we lost because of that? Because we're not willing to say, you know what, talking doesn't make you weak.
Yeah.
If
Or
anything,
asking for help.
Asking for help doesn't make you weak. If anything, it makes you strong, because you got the balls to stand up and say, you know what? I can't do this on my own. And none of us can.
Yeah.
But we run through our careers thinking we're fucking Superman.
Well, one deputy, one riot.
Yeah. We got the big old S on our chest, and I'm going to handle this, and we can't handle it alone. And it's standing up and saying, and having the strength to say, fuck, man, I can't do this. And reaching out to a friend and say, hey, I need you. I can't do this alone.
Yeah. And that's bravery.
Yeah.
And I think too, and I know I said, like, I think it's more difficult for men, and I'm not throwing that as a dagger. I'm saying, especially because
it's absolutely true.
Well, I'm raising young men, like my own kids, right? And so I identify the things in this society that I think are really hard on men because we expect a lot.
Well, and the changes in society with the advent of social media and the internet, and what people think expectations of them are, and what people think they have to live up to is completely different than when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah. And that really, and that covers all boundaries, because I think all of us feel like we have to do everything, right? If we're going to be good. And we do have this, we're striving for excellence because we want to be good people. We want to be good parents. We want to be good cops. I want to be a good CEO at SEBA, and then there's the whole thing, like, I can't do it all. I can't do it all alone.
Right. 100%. And you got to be able to have those people that you trust to delegate things to, and know that, they've got your back. And it's that's the other thing about leadership is relationship building.
Yeah.
It's funny. My kids say all the time, it's like, everyone. And it's like, because something will happen and they'll be like, do you know anyone? Yeah. Pull my phone out. Hey. And
I know a guy.
Yeah. And they're like, we can't, and well, even growing up, they were like, we can't get away with anything in the high desert. Everyone. And it's like, my son got pulled over by one of my motor buddies one night, and he was like, everyone. But it's like, everything's relationship building. Mm-hmm. It's being open. It's helping other people. It's what the guy that I worked for at the college that was the director of the criminal justice program was a retired sergeant from Clovis PD. And one of his favorite sayings was, no matter where you go, always leave people better than you found them, or always leave a situation better than you found it. And I think if we can strive to do that, then, and it goes to that relationship building and being able to, hey, what can I do to help you?
Yeah.
And we're all wired for service. It's why we ended up in this career.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I serve other people, and how can I leave them better than I found them? And those relationships that you build are the ones that are priceless, because 15 years down the road, you call that person and, hey, this is going on. I thought of you. Yeah, no problem. What do you need? And it's like, because you've put in that groundwork and that relationship building. And, it's one of those things that I don't think we do enough of.
Like true relationship building, not just networking or the whole fostering environments where people feel safe to ask for things, or even as simple as you said, asking a sergeant or telling a sergeant, like, no, I really don't want to pick this up because I haven't spent any considerable time with my family, or it's my son's 3rd birthday and I'd really love to be there.
But it's having fostered that relationship to the point where you feel comfortable saying that.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of young deputies are afraid
to agree.
Speak up and say those things.
I agree.
So that's some of the things when we talk about leadership, that's where leadership can get better, is like, you don't have to be this, I've got the 3 stripes, I'm the man, that's authority. That's not leadership.
Yeah.
Fostering that relationship where your guys feel comfortable and safe to come to you and say, hey, that shift last night was a MFer, and, I'm dealing with some shit from some of the calls I handled. We've got full staffing tonight. Is there any way I can take the night off? But how many people are able to go to a sergeant and say that?
Yeah. And then it opens up the, it depends, right? Like somebody might hear that and think, oh, are you okay? Which is a good thing. Like, oh, are you okay? What can I do for you? What can you need? Somebody else might hear that and say, oh, are you okay? Can you do the job still? Do you need to be evaluated? And I'm not, the people that may take it to that extreme are probably few and far between, but the fear, like you said, the perception that somebody could, when that's your livelihood and your passion and your calling.
But I think we have this stigma that if I admit that fucked with my head and I need a night off for mental health, that stigma that I'm going to be looked at as a broken toy and I'm not going to be able to do the job anymore because this one call fucked with me. And whereas the reality of it is, hey, I just need a night away.
Yeah.
To wind down, to spend some time with my family, to not roll to another call right away. Let me have some time to sit with this and process it, and then I'm good.
Yeah.
But this career for too many years, decades, probably the whole career.
Probably the whole career
existed,
since its inception.
It's that, if you admit that something messed with your head, then there's something wrong with you. And it's like, and we've done thousands and thousands and thousands of families disservices by allowing that to continue.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing too is the reality is that thing that fucked with you, it would fuck with anybody. That's not wrong, right?
Right.
Like, sure, not everybody has to do this job and not everybody gets confronted with those things. So they don't have to. And there's always that sense like, well, I chose this profession or I knew what I was signing up for, right? But two things can be true at the same time.
100%.
Yes, you chose to do this because it's a calling, you're valiant, you're brave, this is what you like to do, you love the adrenaline, all the things, whatever it is. But this is still a fucked up thing to go through. These two things are true.
And it's one of those things that's funny too, is that not everyone's cup is the same size. Yeah. It's like, for some people, this thing that happened, they have a thimble and it overflows when that thing happens. Whereas the other guy's got a stein and, it's barely in the bottom of it and it doesn't faze the person.
Yeah.
We also have to look at life experiences and the things we have gone through growing up can affect a lot of those things. So it's like, what may be true for you, you may be going, he's fucked up over that call.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and then it may reverse. There may be a call that fucks you up that guy's like, really?
Yeah.
That's what got to him. So it's like the judging other people's trauma and thinking you have a right to judge someone. I mean, it's that you never know what someone else is going through. So shut the fuck up.
Well, and all things are relative too, right? It's like, yeah, I have not lived these experiences. So maybe this one thing triggers something that I have lived, or you're right. Yeah. We are still very human. We are human
100%,
at the end of the day.
And not everything affects someone the same way. And it's one of those things. There's a podcast I listen to called Cleared Hot, and it's Andy Stump was a former Team 6 SEAL. And he says, he has a saying, and I think I mentioned it in the book, but he has a saying that when you touch war, it touches you back.
Yes.
Which I kind of translate into when you look into the darkness looks back into you. So it's that, what you're doing going into this job. That's why you have to have healthy coping mechanisms and you have to have ways to deal with that. Because going in, like he says, the military guys, they go on their deployment, they come home, but when they're coming home, it's going to take them a month to get home or a few days to get home, and they have time to wind down, and then they're home for a certain period.
Yeah.
In this career, any first responder, nurses, emergency room workers, it's every day.
Yeah.
You finish your shift after the trauma you've dealt with, you get in your car and you drive home, and you're walking into the house. Have you had any time to decompress or let go of any of that? And then if you're working 3/12s, 12 hours later, you're right back to it. And it goes on for 30 years. It's not, hey, I deployed for 6 months and now I've got 18 months to train and prep and cope with these things. And even those people, you see the military suicide rate and those people that have a problem dealing with things, and they've got time off in between.
Yeah.
Here you've got first responders and firemen and paramedics and ambulance drivers and these people that deal with this shit day in, day out, 12 hours a day, and it never stops for 30 years.
I think that was one of the craziest new baby deputy experiences I had, was my first kid that died while I was trying to do CPR, right? And of course, they never call them until they transport them, but we knew. So I remember, and people could hear it in my voice on the radio, they could hear in my voice when I was rolling to the call. And I remember pulling over, and people messaged me, on the MDC and, asked, are you okay? I heard your voice. They texted me. But I think that was my biggest realization, was like, I pulled over, I cried, I called my husband at the time. We said a prayer, and then I went right to the next call, which shocked me. Not like in a way that I couldn't do the job or anything like that, but that was like, oh, wow, this is the expectation of this job, right?
Right.
And I'm not disappointed in the career. I'm not disappointed in my supervisor. I'm not disappointed in anybody, but it was just realizing that's the job then you have to say, okay, then how do I deal with this?
Right. And that's one of the things that I really wish the public knew about this job was that I was teaching for Park University for a while, and I was teaching a class, and I showed a video of these two officers dealing with a bunch of 16-year-old kids that like started fighting at this pool party and they're trying to break it up. And, you know, and one of the like 16-year-old girls is screaming at the cop right in his face, and he ends up taking her to the ground, and everyone in the class was just appalled.
Of course.
And it was like, I was like, okay, would it change your mind if you knew as a backstory that officer just came from a baby drowning call and he did CPR on the baby and the baby died? And then as soon as he walked to his car, he had to get to this call. And there were students in the class who were like, well, you're supposed to be a robot. That shouldn't affect you. And it's like, we're human beings. And most of us are parents. You think my doing CPR on a baby and having it die in my arms isn't going to affect me emotionally?
Yeah.
And that's also where, as supervisors, we need to do better with stuff like that, saying, hey, take the rest of the day off. Go process this, deal with this. And, you know, it's one thing to say, hey, are you okay? Because knowing most cops, they're going to say, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. You know, whereas it's like, no, go home.
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah.
Go home, wind down. I'll see you tomorrow morning. But it's like, I don't think the public understands that. They just see what's shown in that 15-second clip. And it's like, oh, look at how they lost their shit. And they, you know, did this and they did that and they brutalized that guy. And it's like, at the end of the day, we're all human and we're a sum of our experiences. And if I've just come from a traumatic experience and I haven't processed that yet, you don't think that may affect how I deal with the next call that I'm on, especially if it's a bunch of teenagers that are, you know, losing their mind and screaming at the top of their lungs over inane things. It's like, really, this is what I'm doing?
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting paid to do? I just had a baby die in my arms and I got to deal with this snot-nosed brat screaming at me.
And then I'm hearing you say that, and I'm agreeing with you all the way full circle too, because what I can hear the public, especially now, saying is, yes, that would deal with you, right? Like, or that would affect you. We can recognize that's a horrible thing to go through, because there's a lot more, I think there's a lot more acceptance of that. But then what I can see the public saying, and then it's your responsibility to ask for help, right? Or if it's your responsibility to ask for some time to decompress, which circles all the way back to kind of what you're saying.
Right.
Is like, we do need to kind of recognize that, yeah, especially in a case like that, that's a good case study, because these actions are now publicly scrutinized. They could make national news, right?
And then scrutinized for years to come.
Right. This is a
for
training
a decision
video
that was made in, you know, a split second.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think too, being a young deputy, being able to look past the call, look past this, and really think about the longevity of your career and past your career, which is when you're talking about realizing that there's things that are so much more important than this job, right?
Yep.
And so in that moment, if that's happening, we got to find that courage to say, hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And then the leadership has to say, yeah, it's okay to not be okay.
And again, it all comes back to culture.
Yeah.
What is the culture that we're promoting as a department? Are we promoting a culture that says we care about our people and we want to make sure that our people are good? It's a tough line.
Yeah.
Because also we're shorthanded. So it's like,
yeah.
But at some point you say, you know what? We're going to be shorthanded today because we can't afford to lose this deputy permanently.
And I only made it as a detective. So I went one rank up, you went a higher rank than me, but I think both of us are self-aware enough to say we don't fully understand the responsibilities and the accountability that the high ups have. But at the very least, I know that they recognize the conversations need to be had. And,
right.
And these conversations are productive. And it's like, okay, what can the profession collectively walk away from where we can encourage people to ask for help when necessary, right? Because then you border on maybe people take advantage of that, maybe they don't. But then
but again, you come back to that because we're human. There's going to be people that abuse the system, and it doesn't matter if it's the 4850 system or whatever system it may be. There's going to be people abuse it. That's just human nature. There's got to be trust on both sides, right? But then we come back to, when we talk about culture and accountability, we come back to when you have those people that abuse the system, fucking deal with them.
They need to be,
deal with them.
I was going to ask, like, what's one thing you want to leave people with? But I feel like you just said it. But I will ask.
It's take care of your people, be they peers, subordinates, be they your leaders.
Yeah.
You have a job to your leaders to take care of them as well.
Yeah.
And to represent them in the most professional manner you can. The other thing that I would say is, and it's one of the main points of the book is we talked about early on is don't let this career become your identity.
Yeah.
This job is not who you are. It's what you do. Any job is not who you are. It's what you do. At the end of the day, you're a human providing a service to help try and make the world a better place. But at the end of the day, that's not who you are. I've asked people that a ton of times. Who are you? I'm a cop. No, you're not. That's what you do. That's your profession. It's your avocation, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You are a professional. That is your profession, but that's not who you are. So it's look inside yourself and figure out who you are and who you want to be.
Yeah.
What do you want your legacy to be? Do I want my legacy to be, oh, he was a great cop? Okay, so what? You get out of this career, and if you're lucky, you live another 25, 30 years. It's the Al Bundy thing, like living, I threw the winning touchdown
4
pass.
touchdowns.
Yeah, my senior year of high
High.
school, and it's like, okay, and after that, what did you do? You're
Yeah.
a shoe salesman? It's like, what do you want your legacy to be? When people talk about you, at your funeral or whatever else, what do you want them to say? Oh, he was a great cop. That's it? He retired at 50 and he died at 85. He had 35 more years on this earth. What did he do with those 35 years? Did he make anyone's life better? Did he leave anyone better than he found them? Or, did he sit at home and watch TV and eat bonbons until he had a heart attack? I really think we need to emphasize to people that you aren't what you do.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love it. I appreciate your time. I feel like we
I
could talk
appreciate you having me.
forever, but I'll save it for the next book.
All right. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Peace.